Morning. Actually, this is working. First of all, appreciate the flexibility. I think I was supposed to go first and got caught up in something. We had a fire to put out. And I think at this time it's just kind of wet embers, so we got that handled. And I appreciate the switch up in the agenda to accommodate. But it actually, I think, is going to work out maybe a little bit better because I heard a question that was asked of the previous speaker having to do with mandates or the rules or the laws, and that's basically what I'm here to address. So I was asked to assist in a project going back a little over a year where the Bureau of State Audits audited several State of California web properties for accessibility and came up with their findings report. Based on that audit, they found a number of things that basically ended up, I'll give you the short version, ended up with a couple of recommendations from the state auditors to the Department of Technology to disseminate to all state entities in California. One of those recommendations was the inclusion of keyboard shortcuts and operating system shortcuts inherent in the various operating systems and browsers be included in every website. So I can address that. One of the other recommendations that they gave was that a technology letter be released reminding departments of their obligations. And that was released in November of last year. And I have some excerpts from that here. So TL 1505 was released in November of 2015, and it started with the purpose of the technology letters to remind all agency state entities of the statutory requirements related to web accessibility and to provide information to assist in immediate implementation. And there were a couple of bulleted ways to do that. So it said California state agencies must design and develop web content that is accessible to people with disabilities as well as those without disabilities. Doesn't get technical how to do it. This is simply the technology letter reminding departments, whether you are an agency, ultimate responsibility with the secretary, or a department where the ultimate responsibility with the director, or even a board, a panel, or commission, where there is somebody in charge. All entities in state government have this obligation. Web page developers, designers, program, and content providers, so this is much lower level, these are people actually doing the day-to-day work putting up the web content, must become familiar with the standards and guidelines for achieving universal web accessibility and must comply with applicable web accessibility laws as described in SIM Section 25. So in addition to Government Code 11135, SIM, the State Information Management Manual, also has information in Section 25 relative to accessibility and web accessibility. Now there is a secondary project may be an overused term here, there's an effort underway. To be very frank, I'm not part of that effort, but Department of Rehabilitation and Department of Technology are working collaboratively, and they are working to draft new SIM Section 25 language relative to WCAG 2.0 and those types of new technologies. So that is coming. I don't have a time frame. I don't know how long that'll take. Like I said, I'm aware of that initiative, but I'm not part of that initiative, so I can't address that. But keep your eyes open, because as the technology letter states, whenever SIM Section 25 does get updated, the obligation is to become familiar with and adhere to whatever it says. And then as of July 1st, 2016, all public-facing websites, very clear, intranets are excluded from this. So internet web properties that are public-facing and maintained by California state agencies or state entities shall include standard browser usability features and links to additional pertinent information on their website's homepage. The hyperlink may be placed in the header or footer and be consistently applied to all web pages. Hyperlinks should not be included in any slideshow or rotating carousel display. So that's what the language that Technology Letter 1505 stated when it came out in November. We received a handful, several, emails and telephone calls of what specifically you're asking us to do. This is unclear. This is high level. Day to day, I'm down in the weeds, down in the trenches. Just tell me what I have to do. And there was a lot of discussion whether this was the best method forward or was just a method forward. Regardless of getting into all of that, this is what was decided. So there was some discussion about just putting a link to a single web page where it all resided. State auditors said that was insufficient, and they wanted it recreated on each and every website, native to each and every website managed by the state of California. This includes those that are managed by contractors or consultants under contract by a state entity. So if you completely outsource a website or a web app, it's still required to meet these goals, and part of the instructions to your consultant or contractor is to meet these goals and standards. So we do have instructions, well, I don't know if they're really instructions, to assist agencies and states to comply with the requirement and methods. That's found in webtool.ca.gov, web content/web accessibility. Can we open this, Michael? We should. So this is the page on Web Tools. The link is up there at the top, webtools.ca.gov/web content web accessibility. This was, some of this content was there previously, some of this content is somewhat new. All of this is here in accordance with the agreement made on the state audit's recommendation to post this information. So it's a very, very high-level overview. It does talk about adhering to CCAG 2.0 AA. There's been some discussion from the web community in the past of what standard do I, is single A enough? Do I have to meet triple A? If I don't meet, what's going to happen to me? As it states, it is recommended that you try and hit AA standard. That's a recommendation. And again, a lot of this comes down to if somebody were to complain, somebody in the public, explaining best effort, why you did what you did, explanation, we did this, we thought, and generally speaking, if there's a finding, the finding would be that's insufficient, you need to do this something very specific with a time frame, and you just have to go back and do it. So these are guidelines. I'm going to be very clear. So don't panic if you run one of your online free tools or a paid tool for accessibility against a site and it shows you barely meet or single A standard. Nobody's going to come after you and say, well, you need to do better to get to AA. But if you have bandwidth, if you have time, if there's a couple of few things, it's always a good idea. The higher the level you can go towards, the better off you'll be. Then there's a quick description there about the goals: perceivability, operability, understandability, robustness, etc. And down here is where the pages that had to be created. And this is basically the content that needs to be recreated. So it gives you the tools that are recommended. Again, these are recommendations. It gives you the checklist there in PDF form for both WCAG 2.0 as well as Section 5A of the Rehabilitation Act. Some keyboard accessibility, just various, here's the WebAIM, the WAVE, and Snook for verifying color and contrast, just some links to some tools, other issues. There is resources for testing browsers, And under here, these are the keyboard shortcuts, and there are 4 of them. These are the 4 browsers that were agreed to with Bureau of State Audits. It's Internet Explorer. This has not been updated to take into account Edge. One of the recommendations we made was, hey, let's have this as a single place record of truth and just link to it, then it has to be changed one place. And that was pointed out because Edge was being announced. We said, well, when Microsoft rolls out Edge with Windows 10, somebody has to go in and add it to this list. This list then has to be communicated to the web community, and they have to all go and re-update their specific pages that you're requiring them to build into their sites. And the response was, yes, that's exactly what we were expecting to have happen. So the department will maintain and update this list as time goes on. You, the other departments, need to be aware, and I don't know if Michael, if there's a communication methodology of, hey, whenever this gets updated, something goes out to the user group or however that gets done. But hopefully we don't just throw up information and hope you stumble upon it and know that something has changed. There should be some communication. Something's changed, but the obligation is once you're made aware of the change, go read it, review it, and incorporate it on your pages where applicable. As an example, I'm not going to click through all 4 of them. I just clicked on Internet Explorer, but this is the actual information they're looking to have up there where it shows what it does and the keyboard shortcut you use to achieve it. It's this column area for those, the left-hand side, not the right now portion that I'm addressing here. So just working with tabs, and they're very exhaustive. And frankly, much of this information is found on the various manufacturers. You can go to Microsoft, you can go to Apple, you can go to Mozilla, and look up their browser page, and much of these keyboard shortcuts are there as well. But again, the recommendation, which was accepted, was we would recreate this information for these 4 browsers on each government website and link to that page from the header or footer of the home page of each government website. Yes?
So what needs the people working on this decide to have it on the individual websites instead of linking to the source documentation, and you wouldn't risk having out-of-state information, things like best practices.
That was the argument. It didn't fly. So, yes, the short answer is that was pointed out to the group. And there were, without being politically incorrect, there was a lot of discussion, and the day ended, the sun set with the state auditor saying, we've given recommendation, we expect it to happen. We heard you, we understand your concerns and your issues, but we believe this is still the best way forward. Your job is to disseminate the information to the community so that they are aware of their obligations. That's what we're doing.
Was that a recommendation or request?
I am using the language that came out of the audit. So the auditors make recommendations. And I think there were 5. Recommendation 1 is thou shalt do this. Recommendation 2 is thou shalt do that. There was a 60-day follow-up to see if we followed. The state of California had complied with all the recommendations. So while the language is recommendations from the state auditor, they are de facto requirements, at least requirements that we have to follow. So our requirement was put out the technology letter to communicate to the web group and to put a source of information that can be copied and recreated on other websites. Those were recommendations which we took under advisement, accepted, and are now complying with. And jumping back, I believe there is one additional here for testing applications. So there's some various information about browsers. Here's some more information about screen readers, voice recognition software, the magnification software. So if you go to this accessibility portion of the Web Tools website, look at the information here. The information contained in these 3 links and their subsequent sublinks for the browsers is the information that needs to be recopied on your websites. while this is good information here on this main accessibility page, this page in and of itself does not have to be copied and recreated. Sorry, I saw his hand go up first.
Is there some standard link tags for that information?
I'm sorry, some standard?
Standard link tags?
No.
They go to everything now.
Yes, what you call your pages was not recommended, just that the information be there. Again, we discussed should it be accessibility, web accessibility, ADA compliance. They didn't have a strong opinion on that as long as the information was there as a page or pages, and they were linked to from either the header, footer, or the home page. Yes, you had a question.
So just to clarify, we need to provide information on standard browser accessibility features and keyboard shortcuts.
And the tools. So again, I'll go a little off script for now. My opinion was if the person who is the private person in the public who's hitting this website needs these assistive devices, they probably know what they're using, and us providing them a list of alternatives, I don't know the value in it, but we were required to provide that information, so that is part of the information we have to provide. And it may be beneficial. Maybe somebody's using something archaic, and they aren't aware of something new, and they stumble, hey, this is better still, and maybe that will be beneficial to somebody who needs these type of assistive technologies. Yes, Michael. Okay, so there's a question regarding boilerplate language to include in contracts for contractors doing this type of work on behalf of the department. The short answer is no. There isn't any boilerplate language that I can point you to, provide to you, or email to you after the fact, other than the technology letter, 1505, does clearly state the responsibility for contractors and consultants under contract or consultancy. 2 state departments must comply with this as well. That's really all it says. If you know what you're trying to achieve, however you and your contracting department or area within your department manage that to put in, these are all really good recommendations. I don't believe we're limited to only what the audit recommendations are. If we have other things as a community that don't violate, but we say, you know what we'd like to do, I don't see a problem with that. So if the group wanted to get together and collectively establish, I think this language and create boilerplate meets the goal and the need, and we will use it. It won't be a requirement, I won't be bound to do it, but if you collaboratively work together, many hands make light lifting, I don't see a problem with that. Yes?
Terms and conditions imposed by UPS on purchases of software and services, this is the accessibility requirement.
Those state contracts and manuals.
So it's written into state contracts. That doesn't mean it's actually workable.
And as all contract management goes, it's one thing to put it in the contract scope of work, it's another to do contract management and ensure that whoever gets awarded the contract adheres to all of it. And yeah, you're doing your job, making sure your site is accessible, and then writing herd on whoever's doing this application or other site and making sure that they're also doing their job. So yeah, we've had many discussions with the Department of Rehabilitation that it becomes a can be a full-time function, or at least a significant portion of a personnel function to do this and do it right. But it's really something that we should take on. I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but there's a significant portion of people in the state of California, our constituents, people we're trying to serve, who need or would definitely benefit from this being in our websites. We're not the private sector. We can't say, well, I'm willing to lose a few people as customers and let them go somewhere else because I'm going to look at the bottom line margin. we need to serve the entirety of our state's population. So we have to go that extra yard, that extra mile, whatever you want a metaphor, and make this work for the vast majority of people.
Over 6 million people in the state of California have this award.
I knew DOR would know about that. Yes.
Our current practice is for all of our websites, we have our brand and our logo on, and we do go to our one accessibility page. From what I heard you say earlier, each site would need its own accessibility.
That is correct, yes.
So then
If
we
it's
have a dozen sites.
If it's a separate site, if it's not just, a directory of a single site, if it's a separate standalone site, then yes. So maybe that's impetus to re-architect how your sites are built. Yeah, cut, copy, paste to get good at that after a while. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay.